Hey, it's Friday night. It's all in. It's John and Ed. How are you, Ed?
Hey, I'm good. I'm always good on a Friday.
Yay.
Another week of Clown World. It's always a bonus.
What do you think, Ed? I did it, Ed. I channeled my inner JD.
You look so gorgeous. You're probably going to have women hanging their knickers at their phone screens.
Somehow I doubt that, but there you go. So, good evening, Troll Room. Welcome to Friday, the beginning of the weekend. Dreadeye and Julie, Beats and Types, Shalini, Nectaridus, Ray, or whatever he wants to call himself today. Everybody's here. Vaughn's here too. My man Vaughn and Britmate. Cheers, Britmate. What are you drinking tonight? I've got some of the old Badger, thirsty ferret.
Oh God, he's on the Badger.
I'm on the Badger.
You're in trouble. Give him about an hour and he'll be fucking ranting again. I'm drinking Jamshed, which is my current favourite red wine.
Oh, I like the Jamshed.
On offer this evening.
Yeah,
it's lovely and fruity.
That's what I was drinking last night, except I was on the rosé version.
Yeah, well, that's just because you and your mascara, isn't it?
Mascara and eyeliner. My wife goes,
and rosé.
My wife goes, "How are you going to get that off?" And I'm like, "I've got baby wipes." And she goes, "Yeah, good luck with that."
So did she look at you in the same way as wives must look at their?
Oh, she always looks at me with
husbands who shave their legs and try and act like Bradley fucking Wiggins.
She looks at me like with nothing but contempt, mate. It's just pure contempt. I mean, isn't that what happens after a certain amount of marriage, doesn't it? Yeah. As I said,
if the two that I work with are anything to go by, then yeah, I've been working with them for 30 years now. But yeah, so old married couple.
Yeah. Right. Okay, let's get into it, as they say in YouTube parlance. Let's get into it. Yeah, we get into it. We get into the drink first. Get into it. Right, you people out there, where are we going first? Well, let's start with one of the creepiest Birkin, what would you call it, slides I've ever seen. It was a tough huddle, my toughest huddle yet. Yeah.
And the kids.
Was that because you were trying to hide your erection? You perverted, horrible, obnoxious man. I really don't like this guy.
Me neither.
Something about
really. My loathing of him increases seemingly by the day. I mean, but my contempt. I have contempt for his whole government and pretty much everyone in Westminster. I mean, there's a few of them that speak sense on certain issues, but on big issues like this whole Ukraine mass psychosis that we're dealing with at the moment, they're all singing from the same hymn sheet, and they're all spouting historical nonsense. I mean, there's so much historical revisionism going on that it's just mind-blowing.
Well, right, just in case you don't know, Ed, I made a whole video about this, about how Ukraine... Well, you will have missed it, Mike, because it nearly brought the channel down, because I made a truthful video about how Ukraine got into this mess that it's in right now, and who put them there. And newsflash, as you guys all know who it was the great old USA. And no disrespect to USA, because they're just doing what they always do, trying to leverage small vulnerable countries to get as many resources that they can and then make them into a vassal state and sell stuff to them, which is pretty much what they did. So I had this video up on YouTube and they didn't like it. And I can't freaking find it anywhere now. I don't know what I've done with it. But hey, I'll keep looking. Because I wouldn't put it on YouTube, I'd put it up on Rumble. Right, anyway, so there you go. Keir Starmer just doing it at every opportunity, isn't he? It doesn't matter what he's talking about. It's always wrong. He always comes across as so insincere. because he put a tweet up earlier about, some people that had had some horrible tragedy in their life, and he just didn't believe it. He doesn't come across as sincere.
No, and even the pictures, even this, it's so contrived, and so he's literally one of the most hated people in the whole country right now. His popularity is at depth not even seen by some conservative leaders, and so he's going to surround himself with kids and make himself look like a fluffy leader who cares, and he clearly doesn't. I mean, everything. If you look at what the government's doing, the economy is a mess and getting worse, and I don't quite know how the UK ended up with such bad leadership, but there you go. Should we move on to the next slide, or
let's do that.
Really ranting.
So this was a poll that was up in politics.
Credibility gone. YouGov.
I know, and it's only 5,268 polled, so it's not exactly a massive poll. I've seen bigger polls on Twitter or X as they call it now. So do you think it's more important for the UK government to support Ukraine or to maintain good relations with the US? Well, I would definitely have voted better to maintain good relations with the US, because Ukraine's not going to be there much longer. I mean, have you seen any of the military updates on what's happening?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the front lines are.
It's just collapsing.
Inexorably. Yeah. It's the Ukrainians are running out of men. They're running out of weapons. They were always going to lose. I mean, they'd pretty much lost by August of 2022. Yeah. And the West has just been keeping the corpse alive on life support, spunking all of our billions and American billions and European billions, and everyone's been pouring money into this corrupt nightmare of a country. And even Zelensky himself says they don't even know where half the money's gone. Monaco, Tiffany's, Lamborghini, Ferrari. I mean, there was a comment that Douglas McGregor made. Saying Elon would have a lot of fun auditing where all the Ukraine money went.
So, I mean, I had a look at it, right? Because I mean, people call you out all the time, because I called Zelensky a thief, and someone come back at me and goes, it's never been proven that he's actually stolen any money. And I'm like, okay. So I did some digging, and even before this happened, right? And so regardless of where any of the money's gone since 2022, even before it happened, he had a production company, when he was a comedian. He sold a 25% stake of it to his business partner, who moved it to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands or something like that, into an account, and the dividends were paid to another account in the Cayman Islands, which was in Zelensky's wife's name. That account was then used to buy property in London. So technically, it's nothing to do with Zelensky, but it's to do with his wife. So I'm pretty much given it's just money laundering, stroke, hiding from tax, trying to distance himself from it.
The whole place is a corrupt quagmire. I mean, when you see some of the videos that have come out of the kids of these Ukrainian generals and stuff living it up in places like Monaco and Florida and all these other places. It's like driving around in super expensive cars and spending eye-watering amounts of money. I mean, and being of fighting age. Meanwhile, they're busy forcibly rounding up people on the streets of Ukraine.
Well, look at all the
thing is just.
Sorry.
No, keep talking. I've got a minor emergency here. I'll be back. Right, I'll be back real quick.
And look at all the Ukrainian refugees that are floating about in the UK. They're all driving about in big SUVs and whatever. Refugees, really? They're here on holiday. Anyway, I hope it's all right. I hope it's not MI5 at the door. So this is we'll talk about this more when Ed comes back, hopefully. I'll tell you what, maybe if he's not, maybe I should tell my little story just now. No, it's okay. I'll keep going. Right. I'll move back to the big. Oh, he's back. That was quick. He's quick. I didn't want to tramp over this slide because this was actually one that you put forward. So you introduce us about this one.
Which one's this?
This is the Dances with Bears. Trump to ask Starmer to send the Scripples.
This one. I mean, Dances with Bears. That's John Helmer. So this is not a parody account or an account that talks bollocks or anything like that.
Yeah.
And something like this wouldn't surprise me at all because the Russians have asked numerous times for access to the Skripals because they're Russian citizens, and the Russian embassy in London particularly wants to know if they're all right. I mean, this is what a decent embassy will do, and the British are just stonewalling and not giving any information or anything like that. So I would not have been at all surprised if Sergei Lavrov himself raised this with Marco Rubio in Riyadh, honestly, because they take these things seriously. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. I suspect that Keith is in for I want to be a fly on the wall when he meets JD Vance next week.
It's increased, and remember, people, if you notice, I am channeling my inner JD Vance in honor of JD Vance. But anyway, not only is Keith going out, apparently Macron has been summoned across the pond to explain himself.
Good.
Yeah, well, and so he should.
Those two are the worst.
Yeah.
I mean, the stuff that they're saying, the stuff that they're doing, the utter, complete lunacy of the whole thing. Just even for Starmer to even be contemplating trying to start a war with Russia, if there was any justice in this country, he'd been arrested.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean...
It's crazy, mate. Absolutely crazy.
It's absolutely barking mad. But this one's, like I said, this is one of those ones that I spotted and I didn't see it get a lot of traction. And it's one to watch, that one. Yeah,
and we will. So coming back to closer climes, Glasgow City Council have been urged to intervene in the right-wing commentator, Jordan Peterson. His future show at the Hydro, he has peddled division and promoted extremism like Tommy Robinson and Elon Musk. Elon Musk, extremist? Really?
I mean, I might not. I think Jordan Peterson's a bit of a dick, really. I mean, he says some interesting things, but I don't particularly like him. I don't watch it. I mean, I have watched some of his stuff, but I mean, he's made some absolutely abhorrent comments relating to Gaza. But this whole, it just, all they're doing is proving JD Vance right, literally. Mm-hmm. I mean, he basically makes a speech saying, Europe no longer shares our values because we're interested in freedom of speech and we're interested in democracy, and you people are suppressing speech and cancelling elections.
Yep.
And the whole of the European media as one says, oh, you can't say that. It's like, well, how to prove the person? It's like, yeah, you can have free speech in Europe as long as you say what the mainstream agrees with and what the system agrees with. And if not, then you're a dangerous right-wing extremist and they're going to shut you up, lock you up, or whatever. You
can say exactly what you like, just as long as it's within our narrative.
Absolutely. As Bill Hicks said, you're free to do as they tell you.
Yeah. Right, here's the man himself, JD. Go, JD. Like you said, I'm beginning to like this guy more and more because he's hitting them with blunt facts, and he's just knocking it out the park. He really is.
He's really eloquent as well. I mean, he was the relative nobody. I had never heard of him until Trump made him his vice president candidate person back before the election.
And I thought, who's that? Who is this guy?
And you sort of you read his background and it's like, okay, well, whatever. But he's very eloquent and he's got a lot of balls to come and slap Europe down like that. And I agree with his. I mean, I'm going based on what he said, because when he first came on the scene, I was like, who is this guy? Okay, let's see what he says. And he said a whole bunch of stuff during the election campaign, but politicians always do. What's important is what they start saying when they get elected. And one thing that I did find out that was quite interesting about him from Robert Barnes. He did a really good interview with Duran, and Barnes basically said that both Vance and Hegseth, they have military experience, but they're of the Iraq military, and one of their it's a formative thing for them. I think Barnes even used that word exactly, is the fact that they went over to serve their country and they realized they were fighting based on a pack of lies, and that the whole system was completely corrupt, and it's had a massive impact on them, because they must have seen fellow servicemen die or something like that, and realized that actually one of my mates just died on the basis of a pack of lies. And that's going to have a massive impact. And to be honest, it's the kind of politician. I mean, if a politician is going to be in a position where they are going to send men off to die in a war, then I would very much prefer that politician to have seen some sort of combat themselves, to have been shot at effectively. Because until you know what it's like to put on a uniform and put yourself in harm's way for your country or your loved ones or whoever, and you have bullets flying at you and you're seeing men's brains getting blown out and all of the horrible things that happen in a war, unless you understand war at that level, I don't think you've got any business sending people off to die. Yeah, no,
I think you're right. And what you were saying earlier about, going to war and then finding out that you're not fighting to defend your country, you're actually fighting for corporate interests. It was a bit like that as well when I joined the police, because I thought I was joining the police to make a difference and to be, an upstanding member of the community and to help people. And I was going to lock up bad guys and things like that, but that was all part of it. And then, when you're wandering about the streets of Irvine on a wet, rainy January, freezing your nuts off, right, checking property and thinking, if I miss something, right, i.e. if somebody breaks into a shop or something like that and I miss it, I get my balls kicked by the sergeant and the inspector, right? But if I walked past say if I walked past an alleyway and somebody was lying in it breathing the last and I missed that, nobody would bat an eyelid. It's not about people, it's all about property. And I realised that quite early, and then I just decided to make the best I could of a bad job and had fun by applying for things where I got to drive cars really fucking fast and shoot guns. It was great fun.
Sure.
I loved it.
But the thing is that for someone for an idealistic young man who joins the police service or the army or decides that they want to be part of something that's bigger than they are.
Yeah.
To me, it's the ultimate abuse of men that they're then turned into these tools by the system, and they're either ground down so much that they end up leaving with psychological problems or PTSD or whatever, or they just become so corrupted by the system that they just become part of the problem.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's gone more in the wrong direction, certainly in the UK, particularly when you look at the police and the judiciary and just the overall quality of public servant that we've got. There are good ones out there, I'm sure, but unfortunately, quite often they get drowned out, suppressed, and completely stressed out and hounded out of their jobs by the rubbish ones.
Yeah, I think you're right, and they do. They really do. It's everything seems to be driving towards a lowest common denominator right now, doesn't it?
It certainly does in the UK.
Yeah,
for sure. I mean, when you look at, and ultimately, Trump's administration is only just really getting going. But when you look at the sort of caliber of people that he's brought on, I'm very interested to see what's going to happen, because ultimately these are the the president of the United States has an awful lot more ability to change the world than the Prime Minister of Britain, fortunately.
So, so J.D. Vance warns Zelensky he will regret bad-mouthing Trump and condemns his atrocious response to peace talks. Well, yeah, because, you'd think anybody who had citizens dying in the hundreds of thousands, if not over 1 million now, if you had that amount of citizens dying for you, for your country, you would think that they'd be fairly interested in some kind of peace talks, regardless of how they came about.
Well, absolutely. I mean, ultimately, the president of a country is supposed to put the country's interest, and they're supposed to, but they rarely do. But Zelensky is just more interested in recruiting 18-year-olds and sending even more kids off to die. I mean, I've even seen pregnant women in Ukrainian army uniforms on Twitter and stuff like that. I mean, but what I really like about these sorts of headlines that we're seeing is that someone is finally telling that entitled, arrogant, self-absorbed, narcissistic little douchebag.
Don't hold back now. Don't hold back.
I mean, honestly, no, but we've seen him
you're right. You're
around
right.
on the world stage, being treated like he's the God King Emperor of Europe. And he's I mean, you listen to some of the stories about how the Americans will send him billions and then he's suddenly on the phone saying it's not enough. Or you see his whining little TV interviews. I mean, he's just despicable. Honestly, I don't have enough adjectives to actually even accurately describe it.
Yeah, he is a scumbag. Look at the state of him in that picture.
He's worse.
He's out of it.
Yeah.
He's out of it.
Yeah, if you see the videos of him at Munich, he looks like he's got serious. He's not just the Peruvian marching powder.
Yeah,
but like amphetamines or something like that as well. He looks like he's on speed.
This is not medical advice, people, but don't do drugs.
Don't do drugs. Absolutely, don't do drugs. Just drink like a fish.
Legal drugs only. Right. I think Zelensky
legal in the state. Of Colorado.
Yeah. I think Zelensky's got a fair chance of following in the footsteps of these awesome people that that went before him, all used and abused by the good old USA.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's even more. I was actually thinking of what's his face, the last South Vietnamese president, because there's an awful lot of parallels between Ukraine and Vietnam. I mean, obviously minus the US, the masses of US troops. But in terms of the dynamics of the,
I'm thinking, and I'm hard pushed. Apart from Iraq, right? When was the last time America went into a war and actually won it?
World War II.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Well, a war against a peer adversary.
Well, even not. I mean, they went into Afghanistan and got their arses kicked by a bunch of Iraqis. Sorry, I meant the Taliban. Yeah.
Look, Afghanistan kicks everyone's arse.
Oh, I mean, they did the Russians before them.
I mean, they've beaten the Americans, the British, the Russians.
See, this is the thing.
Alexander the Great.
This is the thing that gets me as well. Vietnam did the same thing with the French. I mean, they kicked the arse of the French. I mean, do you remember the NBN? I mean, so they kicked the arse of the French, and then America goes in and think, "No, we'll do it. You know, we can do it." You know, the John Wayne attitude.
I mean, if I was in a global bar fight, the ones I'd want on my side are the Vietnamese.
Yeah, probably.
They were so. I mean, if you look at how they fought the Vietnam War and how they defeated one of the world's preeminent superpowers, despite having literally, I mean, I suspect that there were even B-52s dropping kitchen sinks on the jungles of North Vietnam. But I mean, just the tunnels and some of the ingenious booby traps.
Oh, do you ever read any of the books about the tunnels?
Yeah.
Oh, they were devious.
Not loads of them, but I did read one of them that had all sorts of graphic pictures and
devious.
diagrams.
devious, horrible,
nasty.
Yeah, really horrible.
But the thing is that war is horrible.
Yeah, but that's just like
goes.
Hot. Yeah, but tunnels under the ground designed for Vietnamese people that you're trying to put full-grown 6'6" Americans down. Just that would give you the heebie-jeebies. That.
No, I can't do confined spaces.
Yeah, spelunking's not for me, mate. Definitely not. Anyway,
next slide.
Yes, Trump has issued a stop work order to NOAA. That's the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Agency.
But this is a bigger part of this. Actually, bigger aspect to this story, because here they're talking about NOAA and the USGCRP.
Well, I was getting to that part. But anyway, carry on. No, you go. You've got it. You take it, mate. Run with it now.
Well, no, it's literally just that there's a whole class of federal agencies like NOAA, like the FCC, that essentially have just operated and been mainly controlled by Democrats to start with, but just operate outside of normal federal agencies, and they don't really do what they're told, and they're kind of a law unto themselves. And Trump is essentially saying, I am the chief executive and you work for me, and I'm getting control over these agencies. And he's also shutting down all of the climate change nonsense, which, thank God for that. Because without American funding and a lot of the resources that they're getting from USAID and a lot of these US institutions like NOAA and USGS, they've all been told, every single federal agency has been told no more climate change nonsense.
Yep. Right. Kash Patel confirmed. It was a narrow vote, but he's in.
This is, I think, of all of the different memes I've seen in the last week, this is my favorite. Not necessarily because I've got a huge amount of faith in Kash Patel. He's like a bit like Vance. I don't really know very much about him. I know he's been involved in the legal side of things, and he was a congressional investigator or something, and a prosecutor, and he's worked in various legal jobs in the federal government. The thing that I like about Kash Patel is the same thing that I like about all of these people like RFK Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard, is how absolutely mental they make people who I loathe. And literally, all of the worst people in America were losing their minds about this guy coming in.
Yeah, and they still are. And let's face it, and I'm not trying to make it sound like if you've nothing to hide, you've nothing to fear, but these.
That's what the government tells us.
Yeah, the government tells us that all the time, but and that's why I don't like to use it as a catchphrase. But if these people are so freaking squeaky clean, why are they looking up lawyers? Why are they looking up, the laws on things? Because as we pointed out last week, the searches in Washington DC in particular on Google have gone through the roof for legal assistance and for criminal defense lawyers and whatever. Did you see
the map of all of the houses that have been put up for sale in Washington?
No,
as well?
I did not see that.
Yeah, no, apparently real estate in the DC area has absolutely exploded. And there's all these really expensive, like $2 million, $4 million, all these massively expensive properties going on the market as well, as everyone's searching for lawyers. And there's probably, I wouldn't be surprised if there's an increase in searches for countries with no extradition treaty with the United States. Yeah,
go to Brazil and have a baby. What was it? That's what the train robber did, Biggs. Mm-hmm. And then, strangely, obviously wanting to die in the UK, gave himself up and came back, remember?
Yeah.
That was a weird one. Anyway, silly man. Anyway, what was I going to say?
He probably couldn't get Marmite in Brazil.
So, yeah. You tweeted earlier to me, and Britmate's bringing it up again, that Pam Bondi has the files, apparently. The Epstein logs or whatever.
Supposedly they're on her desk.
Yeah. So why can't we see them, Pam? Get them out there. Yep. ASMR moment. Oh, that was pretty. Same.
Because so many people are screaming for all of that sort of thing, and particularly Kash Patel was very, very, he didn't make any kind of bones about the fact that he wanted to release the files.
Yeah.
And he said for day one, I think was what he said, and we're not quite at the end of his day one, but it's also not necessarily quite as simple. But who knows? I mean, ultimately, there are a lot of people out there who are saying that this lot are still not to be trusted, and I don't think it's generally a good idea to trust anyone, really.
No, it's not. You're right.
But at the same time, I go based on how crazy it makes people that I really despise. And I mean, these guys, this new team, I don't really like Pam Bondi. I don't really know her. I mean, she's a bit of a non-entity for me to start with. And we'll have to see what happens. They're making all the right kind of noises, but
still can't believe she's 69 years old.
Was it 69 or 59?
69.
She's 69.
No, 59. 69.
I mean, that's still she.
What age is Pam Bondi?
Yeah, and I mean, she looks like she's late 40s, early 50s.
Yeah, I know.
At the oldest.
No, hold on. What age is Pam Bondi? I'm going to have to check this. And this is where we do our fact-checking on the fly, people. Our fact-checking on the fly. She's 59. My mistake. And see, that's what you're supposed to do, people. You're supposed to say, my mistake, and put your hands up when you get things wrong. Politicians, anybody watching, take note. Hands up. I was wrong. 59.
As if we'd have a politician watching.
No. Well, maybe.
I don't want them to watch. They're not welcome anyway.
No, I don't want them to watch either, but they'll probably be going, whoa, these guys are getting a bit. Mm-hmm. Right. Jim Jones, Deputy Commissioner for Human Foods, Food and Drug Administration, resigned. On the back of RFK getting confirmed, this guy does the straight thing, falls on his sword and resigns. So why would he resign? Why would he resign from a six-figure salary, Ed? Why?
Well, this is a very good question. What's if you were a boomer or a Gen Xer, then you'd have seen this story and instantly had a bit of a chuckle because of the name.
Yeah.
Because of course Jim Jones was the name of a cult leader in the US who convinced all of his
drink the Kool-Aid.
Yep, well, that's where the expression drinking the Kool-Aid comes from, because they all drank poisoned Kool-Aid and dropped dead because they thought it was the end of the world and they had to meet Jesus or something. I don't know.
No, there was a spaceship behind the comet that was coming towards the Earth. Was that Jim Jones?
No.
No, that was that was another cult. There's just too many cults.
But it's also the fact that this Jim Jones was the Deputy Commissioner for Human Foods. He was actually he is the reason why there's so much crap in America's food. Yeah.
So Fluffy, you're on the vertical feed. If you're happy to stay there, that's fine. But the main chat is on the landscape feed, the horizontal feed, which is you're welcome to come across to. If you're using two devices, like your phone to watch the vertical and the TV, or the TV to watch the landscape and your phone to use for chat, that's a good way of doing things. And it gets me 2 views instead of 1.
So sneaky.
That's so sneaky. Do you like my JD Vance? I'm channeling him today.
Yeah, no, I think you're doing well. I think you should try some lip gloss next week.
Mate, I don't think JD Vance wears lip gloss. Anyway, I've had it on since 5:30 because the wife dropped the dinner off at 5:30 and she put it on then. So I've had to not rub my eyes. Or she said you might look like a panda. Anyway. Boris Johnson fans are offered £121 handshake and photo op. Selfie and handshake.
And it's 1-2-1. I'm sorry, but what kind of person pays £121 English to have a picture with this disheveled baboon. I mean, he's got blood on his hands. He's easily one of the worst people in the whole country.
Yeah.
But he must also be desperate if he's doing one-to-ones for 121 quid.
Yeah, it's pretty poor, isn't it? That's pretty poor.
But then I think he's got various offspring to support.
Oh, Fluffy's on a laptop. You should switch on to the horizontal feed, Fluffy. So if you go to the channel, there's two feeds. One's called vertical. What you're looking for is the stream that's called what's it called? News Circus 2025: Clowns, Chaos, and Conspiracies. Because currently you're on the week that was, which is the same thing. Just to make things really clear, it's the same stream. It's just one's horizontal, and you'll find it better on the laptop, maybe. Anyway, right, moving on.
John said, "Do I know how successful his book was?" No, but probably not successful at all.
Well, it was marked down really quickly, wasn't it? So that's pretty. I was going to say, Johnny and John asked Shalini what state she was from, and I was going to say something like Omar, because he. Anyway, right, former Polish. That tickles me. Anyway, former Polish. Though remember, do you ever watch The Big Bang Theory? Did you ever watch that?
I tried.
Oh,
I just found it really irritating.
Did you ever watch Silicon Glen? Not Silicon Glen. The what was it called? Silicon. Oh, good grief! Oh, I just rubbed my face. Silicon. What was it called?
The answer is probably no.
Never mind. Right. Okay. Right. Former Polish official claims Ukraine has stolen half of US aid money, alleges they laundered funds back to Democrats. So Tusk was on, and we spoke about this briefly last night. Tusk was on singing the praises of this little green t-shirted goblin. I just, how quickly they forget that this clown dropped a missile in Poland, killed 2 other citizens, and then tried to start a nuclear war. You know, by asking for NATO to have a preemptive nuclear strike on them.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, this is pointing out what those of us on this side of the fence have known was obvious from the very beginning. And I mean, 10% for the big guy, obviously.
Yeah.
And it's, I think if all of the money was audited, the amount of kickbacks and stuff that was going not just back to the Democrats, because I suspect that there was all sorts of dirty money sloshing around the whole thing, and plenty of different people in plenty of different governments were getting a lot of money.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they were, mate. Pretty sure they were.
I mean, if you look at some of these politicians, how they're on the salaries like 150 grand a year, and they've all got 30, 40 million in the bank. I mean,
right. I'm going to give people I don't know if it's a treat or not, but I'm going to give you a little story, okay? Since the chat room's full of Johnny John's monopolising the chat room about India, I'm going to give you a little story about Indians. Here we go. So sit back and enjoy. You can relax for 3 minutes, Ed. Right, so here we go. Imagine this. It's 1969 in Coventry, England. A group of 21 South Asian women. South Asia, I hate that term. Let's call them what they are. They're Indians. 21 Indian women, mothers, wives, new immigrants, open their doors to a strange delivery. A warm, familiar smell wafts out. Freshly made chapatis. The bread of life. The bread from home. They're told it's for their health. Maybe to help with their migraines or tiredness that they'd been to see the doctors about. They bite in, trusting, unaware that these aren't ordinary chapatis. They're laced with radioactive isotope, iron-59, glowing faintly with gamma rays. These women aren't patients being healed. They're guinea pigs in a secret experiment. And decades later, it's still haunting them. Welcome to tonight's story, the radioactive chapati scandal. Picture Pritam Kaur, or Kaur, one of these women. She's a young mum. Her English shaky, her kids translating for her. She's been battling headaches, so when the doctor's office says, eat these chapatis, they'll help, she does. She's driven then, a couple of weeks later, to a few days later, to a sprawling lab in Harwell. Cold, clinical, buzzing with machines. They scan her body, measuring the radiation. But no one explains why. She thinks it's a treatment. It's not. The Medical Research Council wanted to know why anemia plagued South or Indian women. Was it their diet? Their chapatis? So they turned these women into walking test tubes. They had this theory about the way that the chapatis were made, were binding the iron into the food, and it wasn't been taken up by the digestive system. So they were tracing how little iron the body's actually soaked up. And the dose was small, about a chest x-ray's worth. But the betrayal, how do you measure that? That cut deep. So fast forward to 1995, a TV documentary cracks the story wide open. Pritam, now older obviously, stares into the camera, voice trembling. I didn't know, they never told me. Families whisper about strange illnesses, cancers, weaknesses, wondering if those glowing chapatis left scars. The Medical Research Council shrugs. It was safe, ethical for the time. But was it? These women spoke Punjabi, not English. Consent forms? Were they lost in translation, or were they never even offered or translated? Coventry's MPs, Zara Sultana and Taiwo Otawami, are still fighting today, demanding answers. Who were these women? Where are they now? Dead? Sick? Forgotten? The records? Conveniently gone. And this wasn't a one-off. Back then, science had a dark edge. Pregnant women were dosed with radiation. Kids' bones were shipped off for nuclear tests, all in the name of progress. But here's the kicker, this story's roaring back. Just today, February 21st, The Guardian Weekly splashed it across their pages. Why? Because a historian's TikTok went viral. Was this illegal, she asked. Millions watched, furious. Coventry's Asian community still distrusts the white coats. And the government? Silent. Not a peep. No apology. No justice. No echoes of a time when immigrant women were lab rats, not humans. Think about Pritam Kaur. She's probably gone now. Her kids left wondering, did those chapatis, symbols of love, of home, did they steal something from her? We may never know. The radiation faded, but the questions burned bright. This is more than a scandal, it's a warning. Science can heal, but unchecked, especially in the hands of government, it can harm. And sometimes the harm hides in something as simple as a bite of bread. Yeah, that concludes this evening's story. I hope you enjoyed that.
You know, it's Friday, not Thursday, yeah?
Yes, I know, but I came across this today and I thought that's too good to leave off until next week.
No,
and anyway,
sorry, and there's so much that comes up in the interim that we don't get the time. But it's reminiscent of that story that went round in France with the CIA doing LSD experiments.
Yeah.
And made a whole bloody village go loopy.
Well, you've got everything. You've got the Tuskegee. You've got the Tuskegee experiment in the States. You had other experiments here. I mean, we covered some of them in a rabbit hole, but I found another 4 or 5 today where the government were experimenting on the population without telling them a thing about it.
Well, they spread things on the tubes and
crazy.
Anyway, let's get out of the rabbit hole.
Yep, back into the circus of chaos. So, the party now in control of the US executive branch, this is one of yours, is a third party built out of the corpses of 2 prevailing parties. Tell me your thinking on this one, Ed.
Well, I thought it was a really interesting perspective, and Jeffrey Tucker is not someone that I always agree with, but he's one of the commentators that says interesting things from time to time, and this is one of them. When you actually think about it, he's right, because Trump supposedly was a Republican, and he ran on a Republican ticket. But some of his top appointees, RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard spring to mind immediately. They're both refugees from the Democrat Party.
Yeah.
And I mean, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., hello, Kennedys are about as Democrat as it gets. And he's been disowned by some of his own family members because of his views on everything from
hasn't he just
to Trumpers. But I just hadn't thought about it. That's one of the things that makes me bookmark slides for All In is if I spot something that I think, things that make you go,
Indeed.
And it's just, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
Right, and this isn't a rabbit hole, but I'm going to bring this up because this is our little friend Ashton Forbes, who has an obsession with MH370. But he's got such an obsession with MH370, he has been stalking this guy called Edward C. Lynn, right?
Well, he's convinced that Lynn is the one that released the footage of the orbs in the plane. Yeah. So he's now, look at what he's saying here. I've 100% found Edward C. Lynn with the help of a follower. He has an alias now. I'm trying to make contact before I explain everything. If I do make contact, emergency live stream later tonight, and I will pay off the $1,000 reward. I wonder what Lynn will say. For people, hold on, I'm not finished. For people doubting, I have a recent video of him. I have his social media under his new name. I've already confirmed it's him by calling his work. They know him by his old name. I wish I could show the video because it's amazing he was found this way, but I really need to talk to him. If he ghosts me, then I will go scorched earth. Only way this ends is if he talks to me. This guy is a nutter. I mean...
That's outrageous.
For someone who claims to be really clever about free energy and all this other stuff that he spouts about, to actually do this publicly, apart from being kind of borderline harassment, if not actual harassment. If this guy has genuinely released a video secretly and you think it's him, and I mean, A, he's going to get him into loads of trouble. B, what's the point in having an alias if you're going to get...
The guy doesn't want any part of this. Edward Lynn just wants a quiet life. He doesn't want to be exposed. He doesn't want this. He has no part in this. And this guy is stalking him. You know? This is wrong. Well, this is an obsession that's gone over into, dare I say it, mental illness.
It certainly seems like that based on this selection of tweets and based on the way that he's hounding him. You would think that he would be a bit more discreet and a little bit more respectful, and just more discretion would be better in this sort of situation. And I mean, Forbes is obviously, I don't know. It's when stuff like this happens, you rethink your attitude towards a person, because only someone that's slightly unstable is going to do shit like this in the first place.
Oh, right. Anyway, moving on. We are proud Mexicans. How dare you try and send us back to Mexico? You gotta love Elon and his memes and ICE and their work. Especially when these people have protests and they start getting plucked out the protests.
Absolutely. I mean,
it's like, have you given any thought as to what you're actually doing? Look at me, I'm an illegal immigrant.
But it's, I mean, the story itself is funny, but it's also, I don't know, Musk has kind of stepped it up a notch.
He has.
Since Trump got elected. And I don't know, power corrupts, and let's hopefully it doesn't go to his head too much, because the head is quite big enough as it is.
Yeah, so and have you noticed that Musk doesn't actually post pictures of himself? He gets Grok to draw himself. That's why you can always go on Grok and ask it to draw Elon Musk, because he uses it as well to draw Elon Musk. That's not a picture of Elon Musk. That's a Grok picture of Elon Musk without the watermark. He does this all the time. So anyway, Elon Musk hints at sending Americans $5,000 checks with Doge savings. That would be a nice windfall, wouldn't it? Why can't we do something like that here, Ed?
Because there's actually Gordon Brown brought in an act of parliament which would make a Doge in the UK completely impossible, because it was done originally to create independent. It was sold as giving civil servants independence from government, but what it actually means is that civil service in the UK is entirely allowed to, like, not roll back, but if they're told to do something that they disagree with, they effectively don't have to do it. They can slow walk it. They can, like, put up obstacles, and all of that is completely illegal, and there's nothing that the government can do about it. So cheers for that, Gordon Brown. To be honest, I think this is really sensible. If they can claw back enough money from all of this crazy shit that the US government has been spending money on, and there's enough of it to bring the deficit down and also stimulate some economic activity by giving all Americans a nice fat check. I mean, there's plenty of Americans struggling, and I'm sure $5,000 to a lot of people in $5,000 would be nice in the UK as well.
Yeah,
even converted into sterling.
Yeah, it would.
And it also it just shows you how clever these people are, genuinely, because he's causing all sorts of upset, and he's got all of these judges and everything else, and he says something like this, and instantly he's going to get more people on his side, because the Americans who are paying attention and who are sort of on X, actually getting their news from somewhere that's not mainstream media, are seeing these posts from Doge with all of this crazy nonsense that the US government's been spending money on, and they're all being cancelled. And so to then actually get a check from the government and say, oh, I'm getting some of that money back, you're much more likely to support what they're doing. And they can't make the kind of changes that they seem to want to make unless they have the support of the people. Indeed.
Right. So, speaking about losing support, there's been a fair bit of backlash to Five Guys on this, as they've changed one of their Birmingham stores to remove bacon, hot dogs and alcohol from their Fort Dunlop store.
Oh, I personally think Five Guys is overrated. So
yeah, I think so too, to be fair.
I mean, it's also overpriced.
Yeah.
And I can get a better burger in Brighton from Uncle Sam's than I can from Five Guys. But the point, ultimately, it's a capitalist society, and stores are free to do what they want to do. Mm-hmm. And if people don't like it, go and eat somewhere else.
Well, I think that's what I'd be doing. I'd just be going and eating somewhere else. Because as I'd said, it's not that great, it's overrated, and it's overpriced.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, if they, but I mean, the thing is that people make a big hoo-ha about stuff like that deliberately just to stoke these social tensions. And there's quite enough of those in the UK at the moment as it is, without people adding more fuel to the fire.
But in some respects, doing this is stoking social tensions as well, by the store.
Yeah. I mean, if Five Guys were reading the room, then maybe they wouldn't. But it's also, I mean, these are franchises, so it's not necessarily
I know
the Five Guys head office it's implementing this.
It's like during like the pandemic, when people used to say Starbucks is not taking cash. Well, that was never a Starbucks policy. That was always down to the franchisee. Right. Anyway, moving on, and it's time to mock our American friends. And, we do love you. We love you, but we're going to mock you. And we will mock you. And this is the kind of thing why. Because sometimes I think your education system needs a good kick up the backside. So this chap, like I said, per capita is a system that whites created to look less violent while making us look more violent. Yeah. And it's an old one. It's from 2017. But yeah, that's a good one, isn't it? That's good thinking. Smart thinking there.
No,
right.
No,
it's not. Right. And nothing says Scotland. Nothing says welcome to Scotland more than a piece of twisted metal on the border between Scotland and England. What the actual is that meant to represent?
I hadn't even seen this one.
So new plans have been submitted for a giant landmark artwork to be built on the Scotland-England border near Gretna Green. Look at the state of that.
So how much money is that going to cost the people of Scotland?
Oh, that would cost, what, tens of thousands at least?
Something, I mean, it looks pretty big.
Somebody says
and
it's a thistle. Militant says it's a thistle. The weirdest looking thistle I've seen.
I mean, I'm all for public art and I'm all for culture.
It's bizarre.
But what the fuck is that? Mm-hmm. Seriously. I mean, the Lady of the North, that big winged thing. I mean, yeah, that's kind of the limit in terms of the whole.
Well, have you seen the Kelpies? Thing. The Kelpies are quite. Have you not seen the Kelpies? The Kelpies are pretty impressive. So, do you want me to get you? I'll get you a picture of the Kelpies.
Kelp is like a sea vegetable.
No, it's like a Kelpies. Kelpies. These are the Kelpies. See these big things here, right? They're near Falkirk.
Oh, right, horsey things.
Yeah, big horsey's head, right? They're gigantic.
You drive something along like that, I can get behind.
Yeah, and
it actually looks like something.
Oh, they look pretty cool, especially when you're driving along the waterway at night and they're all lit up. You know, they're pretty smart.
I mean, some of this modern art is just shit. I mean, if you're going to
they're huge,
be artistic.
I mean, there's a person down there.
No, I mean,
see that?
I could get behind if they.
There's a person.
If they said they were going to build a bloody great big horse or
like
a 100-foot statue of William Wallace on his bloody sword with his sword out on his horse. I mean,
as long as it's not Mel Gibson.
Well, no, it'd have to look like Mel Gibson. Come on,
no,
recognize him otherwise.
Mel Gibson's short. William Wallace was described as a giant of a man.
No, you would get American tourists coming over specifically to see the 100-foot high statue of William Wallace, and if he didn't look like Mel Gibson, they would be so fucking disappointed. It would just be endless complaints.
Oh, hold on, Robin's just blown my mind. He says it's a third strand of DNA, and that's like I've just finished watching Threshold after not having watched it since it came out in 2005, and that was all about 3-stranded DNA. That was a brilliant concept, wasn't it? You know, you don't invade a country or a planet. You just send information to turn them into you. That's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Great idea.
It would be, well, yeah, if you were going to invade another world, that would be a good way of doing it.
Yeah. Don't bother going there and fighting them. Just send information that's going to turn them into you. Cool. Right. So Apple has pulled the data protection tool after the UK government security row. So Apple's done two things here. A good thing and a bad thing, right? One, they've kowtowed to the UK government.
That's bad.
Which is bad, but in some respects they haven't, right? Because what they've done is, rather than give the UK government a back door, which the UK government ordered them to do, they said, no, you're not getting a back door to our systems, but we'll take off the security for UK citizens. So it leaves us, the UK citizen, more vulnerable to hacking, more vulnerable to being to have our data viewed by Apple and ultimately by the government if they get a warrant to subpoena that data. So what I would recommend, if you have an Apple phone and you have the enhanced security on just now anyway, you don't lose it. You don't lose it just now. They haven't turned it off for you yet. But if you're a new Apple customer, you will lose it, or you won't get it to start with, right? So if you've got it just now, you can keep it until at some point, no doubt they will have to turn it off. But at the moment, if you've got an Apple account, is more or less status quo. What I would recommend, though, is if you want to keep anything totally secret, and again, we're back to if you have nothing to hide, what have you to fear? But if you want to keep everything totally secret, not let the government have a shot at it, then you need to store it somewhere else. That's what you need to do. And that includes your passwords. You need to turn your passwords off in iCloud.
Well, the thing that people have to remember is Pegasus, because the way that most of the encryption hacking works these days is not to bother trying to intercept the communications. There's a tool that they can put on your phone, and then they just own you.
Yeah, effectively,
and it doesn't matter whether you're using an encrypted messaging platform.
Yeah, but that doesn't.
They've got your phone. But this is I know. I realize this is iCloud backups.
No, but and it's also different because remember, you have a private key here from Apple, right? That no one else has. Even Apple doesn't have the key. That's why when Apple warn you that if you forget your password, your data may be irrecoverable, they are not fucking about, because nobody's got the key apart from you. So if you screw up and forget your password, you're on your own. That's the downside of enhanced encryption, you know. So there you go.
Well, the other interesting point to this story that I haven't seen anyone mention is how many UK government employees use iPhones?
Johnny, hold on. Johnny John says I'm wrong. What am I wrong about, John? He's now going to tell me. He's now going to tell me that Apple encryption isn't secure. This enhanced.
So technically, if the government is so worried about the Russians, and loads of them use iPhones, which they probably do because they're all hapless techno weenies, it just means that surely Apple have just made it easier for Putin to hack their shit.
Yeah, they have. Yeah,
personally. So I've heard he does this on late on Saturday nights when he's really bored.
Right. John's talking about something that I wasn't talking about, so we'll disregard that. But let's move on. What Apple have done, and they haven't quite done a BlackBerry, because if you remember, this is what happened to BlackBerry. BlackBerry gave the Saudi Arabian government a back door to their servers, and that was their downfall. Because after that, people just left BlackBerry in droves. But Apple haven't.
That's exactly why Apple's not doing it.
Exactly why Apple's not doing it. So Apple's not giving the government a back door. What Apple's doing is giving is just taking away the actual enhanced encryption.
Well, they're making the British government look like the fascist authoritarian.
Well, they are, yeah, they are,
because they're doing it publicly. I mean, they've announced it, and they're just making the British government look more and more and more like North Korea.
They pretty much are at this point, aren't they? I mean, in fact, no. Was there not? There was a poll the other day. Would you rather have Kim Jong-un or Keith Starmer as your prime minister? And Kim Jong-un won.
I'm not surprised. It seems, I mean, he's certainly got buckets of personality compared to Starmer.
Yeah. Andy seems to have mellowed a little bit as he's getting older.
Yeah, I mean, he's managed to. North Korea's been under sanctions and has basically been, ever since the end of the Korean War, it's been pretty isolated, and the West have done their best to keep it down, and to try and provoke some sort of regime change, and the Kim dynasty has kind of kept going. Yeah. And and when you look at the state of the UK, I bet you North Korea probably has nicer roads than we do.
Yeah, but having said that, they've probably got less cars to wheel them out.
That's true.
Yeah.
But
anyway, coffee is dangerous for you, warns the EU. They have a report for everything these days, don't they? I mean, why do they keep doing these things? Because, you know, in 2 weeks' time, there'll be another study that says coffee's good for you and is beneficial.
Because it's the only thing that the EU seems to do is stifle innovation, try and control everyone's lives, try and regulate industries. It's like the EU is creating AI regulations.
Sorry.
There's AI regulations being created in the EU, and the EU doesn't have one single AI company.
Yeah.
And this is the same sort of Brussels bureaucrat bullshit. I mean, the EU needs to just get the fuck out. They're turning. I mean, there's one thing that JD Vance said during his speech that I wholeheartedly agreed with, is that Europe is essentially turning into a different version of the Soviet Union, thanks to Brussels, thanks to unelected. Because it's like, I mean, you got the Europeans talk about democracy. I'm sorry, is the European Commission elected? No. Do European MPs who are elected have any power? No. So,
well, they do have a little bit.
Talking about democracy just need to sit the fuck down.
They have a little bit of power. They're allowed to delay the implementation of the laws that the unelected commissioners have proposed.
But not allowed to propose laws themselves.
No, they can't do that. You couldn't have
the EU Commission has got all sorts of ways of circumventing the Parliament anyway.
So I got into it on X, as I normally do with someone, and I'm astounded at the amount of Europeans that don't understand that EU commissioners are not elected by the people.
It's just the clever propaganda, literally. And I mean, stuff like this is just absolutely typical of the EU. And that dickhead in Downing Street wants to move us back towards them, despite more people voting for Brexit than voted for his sorry ass. Oh, he's going panda. John's going to get panderized. That'll be fun.
I started laughing so much I was starting to cry. What does Hatchie say? Perhaps England should go Marshall, Rooster, Cockburn. Well, maybe they should, yeah. Brussels is a dictatorship, says Robin. I kind of agree. Johnny John says, you're wrong this time, Ed. The French have many AI companies. I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you if they do or don't. Johnny John's now coming off a chat. It's at least 50% of why I is thingy in here, and he wants to hear the whittering. I don't understand. Anyway,
let's just move on.
Right, moving on. Right, James Bond, long-serving producers give control to Amazon. Here we go. James Bond is about to go woke, isn't he? He's going to go down the tubes. So Broccoli has given up her creative control to Amazon, probably because Amazon have paid her a shit ton of money. I mean, she held out for ages. Only 2 months ago, she called Amazon fucking idiots, and that's a direct quote. And now now she says, yeah, Amazon's got creative control. I will
be proven wrong by John, because I've just asked Grok, and apparently there are a few French AI companies. So yeah. Anyway, I admit my mistake.
Where were we?
But as for James Bond, look. Every single franchise has basically been ruined.
Yeah, it has.
And every single franchise that they haven't yet ruined is going to be ruined by this woke nonsense.
That Jack Reacher one's not doing too bad on Amazon. That's actually all right.
I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, you should have a look at that.
Give that a watch.
Yeah, it's actually all right.
I mean, the thing is that James Bond is not woke. James Bond was a sexist, misogynist, murdering dinosaur.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's to try and wokeify him. I mean, even this last James Bond, like giving up his thing for the woman he loves and all this nonsense, that's not James Bond, for fuck's sake. I mean...
Well, he did that in the book, though, didn't he? Wasn't that... Oh, was it Casino Royale? Is that not the one where he gets married and his wife died? Was it Casino Royale? Not the movie. I'm talking about the book. Hey, do you want to fact check it live? Ask Grok what movie. Well, it's okay. I'll ask. I'll ask.
No,
Grok.
let's just move on because this is really not that important. I'm sure.
This is critical. This is fucking James Bond. James Bond was the crux of Christmas. There was always a Bond movie on over Christmas. Now, now you don't get that because you have a surfeit of entertainment at your very whim. So you don't have the anticipation of getting the Radio Times and looking through, the 2 weeks TV that you were going to get on 3 channels or 4 channels as it became latterly, and sometimes even 5. But, you don't have that pleasure anymore of planning out your viewing over the Christmas period. Am I sounding like if I could really old fart now?
I like the old James Bond movie. And I used to enjoy it much more when I was a kid. And
yeah.
hadn't been down far too many
Anyway,
holes.
He's fucking dead. He get killed.
Well, they'll just bring him back like Doctor Who.
But they can't because he's dead.
Well, they will. They'll do what they did with Doctor Who, and James Bond will come back as a black transsexual they them.
No.
He will. No, he'll have a pink Walther PPK, and the gadgets will be like lipstick that melts prison bars because of a laser. And he'll be wearing mascara just like you.
Yeah, here you go. So this is going to play Jesus Christ in Jesus Christ Superstar.
Is that the Wakanda version?
No, this is fucking real, mate. It's
real.
This is gonna play Jesus Christ in Jesus Christ Superstar. What the actual?
I just can't.
Hell!
I can't engage with this story.
It blows my mind.
It's so unbelievably stupid and so completely ridiculous.
Yep.
That I think we're probably at the idiocracy stage now because this is just. I mean, this woke nonsense. Where does it end? And that's just whatever. I mean, it'll flop.
Not even a man.
Well, obviously. But the thing is, it's like all of this other woke nonsense. It's like the electric cars. It's like all of this other crap. Nobody wants it. Yeah,
I know. Right. Here we go. This guy wants €600 for a shit emoji. So this woman said, "Mr. Habeck, you are such a lying piece of shit emoji. This is the X quote that prompted Habeck to file another criminal report. €600 fine for emoji. The witness Habeck feels hurt by poop in his honour and files a criminal complaint." That's just sad, isn't it?
Did you see that interview that CBS 60 Minutes did with those 3 German prosecutors? Yes, I did. That just explains exactly how this stuff like this is possible in Germany. I mean,
I covered that on Tuesday, I think.
It's absolutely mind-blowing to me that this is... I mean, I'd probably get a fine from Germany because I called Annalena Baerbock a retard today. In fact, someone on Twitter... But they can't fine you. You're not in Germany. But I tell you what, you might not want to go there now. I don't really want to anyway. I can get all the bratwurst I need in Brighton. God, I hope that's not a euphemism. Edit that one. Literally, no, because there's a burger van that does really nice bratwurst, but I didn't think you didn't think that one through, mate. It's on the internet. That's never going away. I'm never going to live that one down. Oh well. Oh dear. It. Sorry, Ed. It's right. No. You don't apologise. I dropped myself in. Oh no, I'm just saying sorry for what's going to happen. I'm just going to say sorry for what might happen in the future. Just to change it, which is actually far more fun. And this is not. Well, yes, I'm going to change the subject.
Yeah.
But someone on my Twitter made probably the best suggestion of the last 7 days.
Go on.
Which is that the barebop should be the new unit of measurement for stupidity.
Right. Okay. And I like this idea. Now, we did toy around with this, and I haven't mentioned the part that I'm going to mention now. We toyed around with this in the pre-show, i.e. when before we went live. So, which isn't a pre-show, it's just me and Ed talking to each other, but pre-show sounds better, doesn't it?
No, you should have called it the green room.
Oh, the green room, yeah, we were in the green room. We were in the green room, having a few drinks and, chatting, shooting the breeze, so to speak. And Ed came up with this unit of measurement called the barebop, which is, I thought, initially was going on about mountains, but it's not. It's to do with Anna, that German politician, who is, as Ed has said, a bit of a retard. And and he was going to measure retard scales in barebox, which I think's pretty cool. Now, I've got something that might hone it to a degree. What would you say if I said we could probably put a Kaja in there as well?
What?
A Kaja Callis.
Oh.
Is she like half a barebop or quarter of a barebop or?
I think she's, well, if it's a stupid scale, then she is, well, okay, if we're going on the scale of retard, then Kaya Callis is to a barebop
Kaja.
what a kilometre is to a metre. So a Kaya
that's like...
It's 1,000 barebops.
Well, there you go. And what about a Guy Verhofstadt?
Oh, Christ. That's 1 million barebops.
Yeah. Oh, well, he would be 1,000 Kayas.
Yeah, he's 1,000 Kayas.
Yeah,
so 1 million barebops.
Okay. There you go. Wow. Yeah, okay. Thanks, Brit, mate. I'm Scottish. Can't frickin' say things properly, I used to think I could speak.
Just call it caca. It's much easier.
Caca. Yeah. Right. Oh, right. Moving on. Doctor Who facing the axe. Yes, it should. As lead star. Kuti Gatwa or whatever quits amid woeful rating and fans' fury at woke storylines. Yeah, because your storylines are shit, your acting's shit, you're not Doctor Who, and call me a misogynist, right? Call me a racist if you will, but Doctor Who was a straight white guy, English white guy, and should have remained so. Or Scottish, but he was British.
I'm less hung up on the race than I am the personality type, because they could have cast an African person as Doctor Who if he had a Doctor Who sort of vibe about him. This one has a RuPaul drag queen sort of vibe to him.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think. I'm trying to think of a black guy that has got a Doctor Who vibe to him.
Oh, I don't know. Denzel Washington might make a good Doctor Who, maybe. Samuel L. Jackson would be fun as Doctor Who.
Samuel L. Jackson would be a cracking Doctor Who. I'm going to take this sonic screwdriver. I'm going to shove it up your...
Oh, that would be class. It just go up to a Dalek and it, and it would just shrink off.
Yeah. I'm going to take that plunger and I'm going to put it somewhere that Daleks only dreamed of having.
Well, exactly. But the point being that it's Doctor Who is a particular character. It'd be, I don't know, but it's just a testament to how stupid the world is. So yeah, let's move on. Doctor
Who was always a kind of grumpy, short-tempered,
I never really got
eccentric. Oh, I loved Doctor Who. I loved it, and the Pertwee Baker were the best, I would say. And then when they reinvented it, Eccleston was okay. Matt Smith was brilliant, and Capaldi was pretty good as well. But I think the storylines in the second season really let it down. But anyway, let's move on. So memes, we're on to memes. I destroyed the Soviet Union, says Ronald R. Reagan, and I destroyed the Democrat Party, says Trump. And he was a Democrat, wasn't he, Trump?
Yeah, but Trump also said, and I don't know if this is an apocryphal quote, but he's quoted as saying something along the lines of, if I was ever going to go into politics, I'd run for the Republican Party because they're all stupid enough to vote for anybody.
Yeah, well, he was right. Speaking of stupidity, this guy is quite tragic, but I'm not quite sure what the hell he was thinking. And one could call it the butterfly effect. It's just bizarre. Absolutely bizarre. Taking a butterfly, crushing it, diluting it into some kind of liquid, and then injecting it into himself. It just seems a bit strange.
The only place on the internet that I can think that anyone would get information that would make them do something so stupid would be Reddit.
Yeah.
I
or
don't
TikTok.
know where do you get an idea for? I mean, okay, fine, like kids smoking herb and then pretending to get high. I mean, like actual herbs, like basil or oregano or whatever. I mean, kids do stupid shit like that, or drinking shandy and then acting like you're a pisshead or something.
Yeah.
But where in the name of all that is holy would you get an idea to catch a butterfly, dry it up, crush it up, and inject it into your fucking arm? I mean, like whatever.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. Yeah, I know. It's absolutely crazy. Let's move on.
But it's also, I mean, it just speaks to the idiocracy. I mean, it's literally the whole world is just turning into an idiocracy.
He was making crystal moth.
Who said that?
Oh, fucking Gunky. That's a classic.
Gunky, well done.
That's a freaking classic.
Oh dear. He's so funny. He's got to meme that one.
I'll drink to that one, mate. Right,
yeah, me too. Raising my one to you, Gunky.
NASA says the odds the asteroid hits the Earth. I think this is Apophis 2032 or something. Yeah.
So Bogota, Colombia, Abidjan and Lagos are in Nigeria. Khartoum is Sudan. Mumbai is India. Kolkata used to be Calcutta, and that's in
Dhaka.
India, and Dhaka is Pakistan.
Yeah, so, I don't see any downsides here.
Well, because if it's big enough to wipe out an entire city, it is probably going to impact the climate.
Yeah, but it's not an ELE. It'll be fine.
Yeah, great. And then but
you know
that we've got the quake storm around Santorini still.
Hey, listen, mate. It saves Bill Gates going up and spraying chemtrails, doesn't it?
Yes, that's another reason he should be arrested and thrown in prison.
After much trawling around X, I found the owner of these pants.
That was I saw that. That was a video of the woman that just.
But look at the pants hanging up on that balcony. That's freaking ridiculous. That balcony's got to be at least 6 feet wide.
Do you have to bring your fetishes to All In?
It's not a fetish, mate. That's not a fetish. I'm not into fat people.
No.
Speaking of fetishes, Trump is reportedly keeps showing White House guests where Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky did not have sexual relations. I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
That's also from 2019.
Yeah, but it's still funny.
It's funny. Did it actually happen?
Does it matter? We're at the point of the night where we've had sufficient to drink that we shouldn't be pulling people up for these things.
All right, I'm sorry, I won't get all fact-checking on you.
Yeah, okay. Hooters are filing for bankruptcy, and that's real. Hooters are filing for bankruptcy. How did they last so freaking long?
You completely picked the wrong picture, because there's a picture of 4 Hooters employees, 2 of whom were very fit young ladies with lovely Hooters.
No, don't say it.
And the other 2 were not.
Oh, good grief. That'll be why they're filing for... I mean, I've got to ask, how did they last so long?
Do some live research and you'll see the picture I mean.
How did they last so long? You know, how did Hooters last so long in this day and age?
Because men will like boobs regardless of any other thing until the end of time. What the fuck?
Yeah, I'm probably...
You probably have to look on Twitter. Oh, no, no, hang on. It's there. Second row, top row. No.
Wait,
top row. Third from the right.
There?
Right, that is the picture that I mean. No, not that one. No. Okay, get rid of it. Hang on, let me just... No, because hang on, I was on YouTube. 1 sec. No, just go down. I have to watch the... keep going, but go slowly. Okay, stop. Right.
It's like the golden shot. Do you remember the golden shot, people?
second row. First on the left. That one.
Oh my God, yeah, I can see the honey monsters.
And that's why Hooters is going.
Oh, good grief. That's shocking.
What is the point in going to Hooters? Because if you go to Hooters for a burger, you're not going for the burger. Frankly, going for a burger. You're going for the burger and the boobs. Now, if you get some hairy ass dude, that's just not No, I'm not
turning off Say Search, Brit, mate. You're just trying to get me into trouble. Oh, that's just crazy, mate. Just crazy.
But you're right. I mean, given the times that we live in, it's a wonder that all of the feminist crazies haven't shut Hooters down.
Oh, right. I've got what? Oh, hold on. I've got something that I wanted to say. No, I don't think I've got anything on my back channel. Right. Okay, here we go. Last slide. Ready?
Go on then.
YouTube, how to drink water tutorial. 3.4 million views. Okay, it was 4 years ago. What the actual freaking hell?
Do we know what the
3.4 million views. How to drink water.
Do we actually know if it's still a video?
I don't know.
Is it still up? Let me just check. I'm going to have to do a little bit of live research here.
Yeah, go and have a look and see if you can find
Let's just see what the current video view count is. How
to drink water. What did people do before this? How did they cope?
Yeah, it does look like... Oh, hang on.
You've gone mute.
Yeah, I found it. When was this uploaded? It's had 4 million views, and it was uploaded 4 years ago, and it's 46,893 comments.
There you go. How to drink water. Thank you for that useful tip.
What's even more hilarious is how much money the video owner has actually probably made off YouTube. From that video. Craziness. So I think that's the roundup of week's insanity.
Done all right, an hour and a half.
Let's just do a quick check to see if we've got anything on
Epstein files.
Epstein files. I was half thinking that Pam Bondi might do us a favour and release them when they're online. Oh look, breaking news. Starmer set to announce Massive new aid package for Ukraine with even more weapons and cash. How wonderful.
It doesn't matter.
Fuck's sake.
I really don't understand this, and I don't understand people did we speak about Dan Crenshaw last night? I don't understand people that can go on and think that Ukraine is winning, because the front is going the wrong way.
Yeah, it's and the people are dying, and the whole thing is it's the propaganda. People have been fed bullshit by the BBC and CNN and NBC and all of these other assholes, and they have no realistic idea of what's actually going on the battlefront. And they've got no realistic idea of what the Russians are like, or what Putin is like, or what's happening in the Russian economy. And what's even more aggravating is that they all think they bloody know because they've heard it off the BBC. It's just beyond me. But the front is moving the wrong direction. Ukraine is losing vastly more. I mean, the losses that are being claimed for Ukraine are absurd. I mean, Zelensky said something like 41,000 dead. This just, no. Not in any realistic universe do I believe that bollocks. It is unbelievable when you've got videos that are 3 hours long that are touring Ukrainian graveyards, like you pointed out last night. You've killed more than 40,000 people. Yeah, and it's disgusting, because something that, if you've noticed something about Trump, and this is actually something that I like about him, is he's the only Western leader that ever mentions the number of dead and how many Ukrainians are dying.
Yeah.
And if you listen to the Europeans and the British and Canadians and all these other people, they don't give a shit how many Ukrainians are dying.
Yeah.
And I think it's disgusting. I think they're all happy that it's not their kids dying. Not that they'd send their kids, they'd send other people in their countries as kids. Their kids would be nice and safe. But the fact that European leaders care so little, they're all like, we're with Ukraine until the end and we support Ukraine. If people really supported Ukraine, they'd get on top of a peace deal in a heartbeat. Yeah. And if they're not interested in peace between Ukraine and Russia, then they're part of the problem, frankly. And they're like, oh no, you can't make peace with Russia. What are you going to do? Make war with Russia? You seriously want to go to war with a nuclear armed superpower that now has a massively strong, battle-hardened army, production in full gear? I mean, Russia can produce more weaponry in 3 months of all kinds than the West can do combined in a whole year.
Yeah, yeah.
And you want to go to war with those people? My suggestion to that is all these assholes that think war with Russia is a good idea should just fuck off to Ukraine. We'll give you a rifle. We'll give you a uniform. We'll parachute you out the back of a bloody airplane, whatever. You go to the front and you fight, and you see how long you last when one of those Russian 3,000-pound glide bombs comes dropping on your ass.
Yeah. Here's a question for you. When was the last time you saw a Ukrainian artillery piece in action when we used to see them all the time?
Yes. Because they don't have them. Because they piss them away.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at all of the lives and the equipment that was wasted in that whole Kursk operation.
Yep.
I mean, Ukraine, the whole Ukrainian battle and stuff, it's going to go down in military textbooks as how not to fight a war. And I mean, Zelensky has made pretty much every single rookie mistake. The way that it's like all these towns where they've been told not to retreat, even though militarily speaking, a strategic retreat is the most sensible thing to do. No, they have to fight to the end.
Yeah. To
the last Ukrainian. I mean, way to kill a country. And people like Boris Johnson make me sick. That man, I mean, going to like scuppering the Munich, the Minsk agreement.
But he didn't act alone. I mean, I don't for minute think that. I think
he was the messenger.
He was the messenger.
He
yeah.
No.
He should have said no.
Exactly.
If he'd had any balls, he should have said no.
Yeah, any balls, any conscience, any morals, any spine, he would have said no. And all of the people that ordered it and all of the people that thought it was a good idea should all be on trial, in my opinion. They're all criminals.
So Robin says he watched MASH as a kid and worked out that war gets the poor nothing. And you're right, Robin, because if you think about it, you know, the 70s and 80s was a bit of a shock for Americans because they'd just been gubbed in Vietnam, and then people in Hollywood started making movies that didn't exactly glorify Vietnam, you know.
Well, MASH was the Korean War.
Sorry?
MASH was the Korean War, not the Vietnam.
No, I know, but I'm saying after MASH was made though after Vietnam, right? And I know it was set in Korea, but then Hollywood started making all these other movies like, you know, Deer Hunter and First Blood and all that, and also
Platoon, Apocalypse
Now. Platoon was more modern. Apocalypse Now was Vietnam era. Apocalypse Now was a fucking fantastic movie.
Utterly superb film. Just to this day, it's an outstanding movie.
If you can, and I know it's a hard watch, but if you can, when you watch it, get the clip, get the one that's not got the buffalo cut out, because it's a horrific scene, and it actually happened. They did it in the movie, but I think it's important to take it in its context. Because it wasn't gratuitous, you know. It was that movie was just awesome, and then there was other movies as well that didn't glorify, you know, the American military, and I think people were going through a bit of a hard time because, you know, the American military were seen prior to that kind of as invincible, and after that, I think a lot of Americans came to terms with the fact that they weren't. Or a lot of servicemen came to terms with the fact that they weren't.
Yeah, I think, I mean, Vietnam, and not just the war itself, but what happened afterwards. Yeah. And the kind of ignominious defeat. And that there's that famous picture of the last helicopter leaving the embassy roof in Saigon. Yeah. Which is just iconic. And I mean, there's the other picture of that naked girl running after the napalm attack and things like the My Lai massacre. Yeah, Vietnam kind of punctured the bubble that America was this sort of, we're the good guys, Captain America, all this kind of stuff. You had loads of damaged soldiers coming home as well.
And most of them were, well, not most of them, but a high proportion of them turned out to be heroin addicts when they came back. Because they were all taking drugs all the time to get themselves through it. Because I mean, like they say, the average age was 19. I mean, they're throwing 18-year-olds into that war.
And and then you being forced to do things like the My Lai massacre and realizing that you're not the good guys, and then coming home. I mean, it's that Born on the 4th of July, that classic movie is a great one to watch for the sort of the reality of it. And I think the 80s was sort of different because that was Ronald Reagan, and America kind of got its confidence back a little bit. And I mean, okay, there's all sorts of rabbit holes we could go down and stuff like that, but just looking at it purely on the surface. But they were still making Vietnam movies, and it was actually the sort of late 80s that some of the really honest ones came out. Yeah. But war is hell. I mean, any politician that wants to send his country's kids to die in a war is an evil bastard. And that especially when it's... Yeah, sorry. No, I was just going to say, I mean, if the country itself is being invaded, then that's one thing. And if that's happening, chances are everybody's going to want to pick up a rifle and fight for their home anyway. But it's when you're sending kids off to die in foreign wars that have, I mean, Vietnam wasn't a threat to the US in any way, shape or form. And they were sold this bullshit about we got to stop the communist menace.
The domino theory.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I remember learning that in school. It was bullshit. It never happened, did it?
Exactly.
Because if it had been right, all of Asia should be communist now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's not.
No, it's even more capitalist than America is in a lot of cases.
In fact, even China's turned to a degree, It's like a capitalist dictatorship now, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, they have. The thing is that I've never been to China. I've never been to Asia, so I can't comment from experience, and I don't think it's necessarily my place to say. I mean, I can give impressions, but some of those impressions might be wrong because of cultural differences, media differences. I mean, ultimately, there's a lot of Chinese people, and they had their kind of Maoist revolution, so they're perfectly capable of overthrowing their own government.
Mm-hmm.
And if enough Chinese people were sufficiently pissed off with their government, you would probably hear more about it. But they're too busy building things and creating like this from the outside, just looking at some of the pictures of some of the cities, and it's all probably a bit polished and stuff like that. But I mean, the one that gets me is some of these bridges that they're building through mountains and stuff, where Western engineers will say, "No, you can't build a bridge there," and no, don't bother. And the Chinese are like, "Oh well, we're going to do it anyway," and then they actually do it, and these Western engineers are just blown away by it.
Yeah.
And that to me is the Chinese are trying to build a society now. What would you prefer? Do you want your country to be spending loads of money on Ukraine and sending billions in aid and weapons to fight the Russians, or do you rather them fixing roads and building bridges and high-speed rail and all these other things that make people's lives better?
Yeah.
I mean, to me, fundamentally, whatever is said about how the Chinese government runs their country and how they do, whether they have elections or whether it's democracy or whatever, to me, that's less important than how much freedom do people actually have and what's the quality of their life. And is the standard and quality of their life going up or down? Because in China, it's going up, and in Britain, it's going down.
Yes and no. Because I think...
to which part of that little rant?
to all of it, to be fair, because I think the problem... Well, yes, you'd obviously spend money on yourselves rather than spunking it away on a war that really doesn't and won't affect you that much, because regardless of what you're told in the propaganda, the BBC or other Western media, Ukraine is not the only brick in the wall. There's no reason for Russia to continue other than what it's actually done already in Ukraine, to be fair. But I think the problem with China is it's in a bit of a stalemate just now internally, because it's got so many people that it can't afford to give them all a good life. That's the problem. And it is a country of massive, massive disparity, because you've got the billionaires, the special economic zones. You've got Hong Kong, you've got Shenzhen, Shanghai, Beijing. You've got all these different areas, right, that are so affluent and so rich, and yet ultimately China is a very, very rural and still an incredibly poor country.
Yeah, but when you look at the thing, one of the things that can lift communities out of poverty is infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
And if all of these bridges and high-speed rail lines and this gigantic, this massive north to south water project that there was, it south to north or north to south, basically.
Yeah, I know what you mean, though.
Gigantic water transportation system that takes water from, oh Christ, is it from south to north? I think it's south to north, because I was surprised when I heard about it that it wasn't north to south for some reason.
Because you automatically think everything goes downhill.
Yeah, but they have too much water in one part of China and not enough water in another part of China. So they built this giant artificial bloody canal system that's hundreds of kilometers long.
Yeah.
And they've essentially solved all of the water problems for millions and millions of people.
Which is actually quite a good thing, right? And then when you apply that, when you look at Britain and think, and let's be honest, right? Scotland's built a shitload of wind turbines that produce a shitload of electricity, right? But you can't ship it to England because the infrastructure can't take it.
Exactly.
Did you know that? I mean, that's crazy. And it's the same with water. Scotland's fucking overflowing with water, and yet we don't have the infrastructure to shift it down to England. Therefore, you end up with hosepipe bans every summer.
Well, and that's why fundamentally
infrastructure is a good thing. Yeah.
Well, precisely, because it's also, say that you've got poor communities in China for sure, but once they get a major road near them, or there's a bridge built that makes it easier to get across their particular mountain, and you don't have to spend 5 hours or 2 weeks or whatever getting around a giant bloody hill, you end up with more opportunities, and it ends up lifting everyone out of poverty.
Yeah.
And if you actually look at the statistics in terms of how many people the Chinese government has lifted out of poverty in the last 20 or 30 years, the numbers are, I don't have them off the top of my head, but they're absolutely mind-blowing. And I'm not saying it's a perfect system. Like I said, I have never been there. I'm going purely based on what I see. I'm a bit of an engineering nerd, video nerd kind of thing.
Yeah, no, I mean, you've seen their fantastic bridge building machines, that build bridges over vast chasms by sending the machine over the bridge that's just built. I mean, that's pretty incredible.
Swiss have a good one, and this is closer to home, and it makes you wonder why they can't have those in the UK, but we're not clever enough, obviously. But the Swiss actually, when they're repairing motorways, they have this artificial bridgey thing that they put over the motorway so the cars drive over it and the traffic is completely uninterrupted. And they fix the road underneath, and this thing just moves along the highway as they repair it. So bloody clever. And I had to spend an extra 10 minutes getting home from the supermarket because of yet another bit of bloody roadworks in Brighton seafront. Oh, changing the subject quickly. I've just seen a report on Twitter that Kash Patel has officially been sworn in as FBI director by AG Pam Bondi.
Yeah, I think.
So technically, this isn't his first day. Tomorrow is his first day. So, okay. Or maybe they've got a big list of people to arrest because of all of them. Because if you look at because Kash Patel and Bobby Kennedy and Tulsi Gabbard, they all started going through the Senate confirmation process roughly the same time.
Yeah.
And it's taken them a lot longer to approve Kash Patel than anyone else. And they were arguably, like some of the Democrats, like Schiff and people like that, were arguably more hysterical about Kash Patel than they were about anybody else. And so I just have this little secret hope that he's got a big list of names on his desk, and he's going to summon all of his special agents and his Fox Mulders and his Dana Scullys and all of these people, and he's just going to send out and just start arresting loads of people.
I'm not convinced that will happen.
No,
like that.
That's just that's a bit of QAnon talking.
Yeah,
but it's still interesting. I mean, based on some of the stuff that he was saying beforehand, and okay, it's always different what they say before they get sworn in and what happens after they get sworn in, because they still have to work as part of a massive federal machine. But again, it goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning of the show, that I like anyone who, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, is what it comes down to. And
Yeah.
when you see people like Kash Patel and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. making people like Adam Schiff and some of these other like swamp creatures totally lose their minds, there's got to be something good going on there.
Yeah, no, I think
Unless
you're right.
it's all just bloody theatre, which is also possible.
It's like, you know, there's too much of this. There's too much of this. This people thinking that there are global cabals trying to run the world. I don't think it's like that. I think it's people doing their own thing and making a mess of it, you know?
People do organise, though. I wouldn't say that
yes,
there's one
they
big
organise
cabal that controls everything. That I disagree with. But I think there are factions. I think there are groups of powerful people who have a lot of money and a lot of influence, and they have their own agendas.
Yeah.
And there's a whole bunch of them, and sometimes they fight it out. I mean, I don't think that all of these groups agree with each other, and some of them might be in open conflict with each other. And it's entirely possible that we just have one group of ourselves taking over from another group of ourselves.
And humans being humans, what they tend to do is they tend to follow people that are getting it right, or what they think is right. And I think that's what happened over, like, when you look at the lockdowns and things over the COVID stuff, because like Johnston, he was gonna, I mean, he said, let's just step back and stiff British upper lip, you know, see what happens, ride it out, and, you know, we'll be fine. And then 2 days later, he's following the rest of the world into lockdowns. And I think that's what people do. They copy everyone else because...
In his case, I think it was vested interest that made him do that.
Well, I think the vested interest is if he copies everyone else, even if he's wrong, he's not going to get blamed for it.
And that's essentially the problem with the vast majority of politicians.
Yeah, that is the problem. None of them will stand up and fucking take it on the chin. Apart from this guy Vance and Trump to a degree. I don't, and Trump worries me in that he's not the same person he was in 2016, you know?
I think that's actually a good thing.
Yes and no, right? Because I think he's going at things he is going at things hard and quickly, but I'm not sure he's doing it in the right way, but I might be wrong. Now, here's a question. So, Ray says Trump is owned. Who owns him then? Who owns him? Ray, who owns Trump?
Well,
who owns Starmer? Because if you're going to say Trump's owned, Starmer's owned, and if Starmer's owned, who owns Macron? Who owns? They're all owned. Who owns them?
It starts with a Z.
Oh God.
Well, if you look at where all the money's going, and if you look at their policies towards a certain country in the Middle East, which I find it's one of the things about Trump that I disagree with fundamentally is his policies in the Middle East. But at the same time, he did get that ceasefire in, such as it is, before he came in. And he's made it categorically clear that he's not going to have any military action against Iran. And I'm sure that Bibi Netanyahu is probably going to do everything he possibly can to make that not be the case and make something happen.
Yeah.
Just in the same way that our own dear leader is going to do exactly the same as far as Ukraine is concerned.
Yeah. So it seems to me that Ukraine and the other country are actually pretty much of a muchness when it comes to the actions that they want to take, right? But Trump in particular is approaching them completely differently. You know, because he's still aiding the other Middle Eastern country. You know, he's not cutting off funding to it.
No,
you know, he's still giving it tacit support.
Well, we'll see. We have to see that one. We have to see how it plays out. He's also the thing is that he's playing an entirely different and a much cleverer game than he did the first time around. He's learned an awful lot, and if you look at what they did with Ukraine, where he essentially sent Kellogg to Europe to
distract,
placate the Europeans,
and
precisely, and the Rubio and others were doing the real negotiations with the Russians, and then they had that meeting in Riyadh. And Sergei Lavrov, I saw an interview with him afterwards, and he said that the Russian delegation asked the Americans what was all this stuff that Kellogg was saying, and Rubio said straight up, it's fake.
Yeah,
and it was a sleight of hand. So, and with Israel particularly playing Netanyahu, who's a wily old fox, and knows America very, very well, and is very powerful in America, and knows more to the point, he knows how the American system works, and he has tentacles controlling most of it at every single level. The kind of game that Trump is going to have to play with regard to Israel is going to have to be way, way more clever than the game he's playing with regard to Ukraine, where arguably he's in a stronger position simply because he doesn't have that pressure internally from the you-know-what lobby.
Is he capable of does he have the cleverness, the intelligence to play the game in Israel?
Time will tell. I can't answer that question, because we haven't seen enough. I mean, it'll be interesting to see. Well, let's revisit that particular question in 6 months.
Yeah.
And see where we're at then, because the thing is that he's moving very quickly, but he's also got 4 years and he wants to make a lot of changes. But he also is outfoxing all of these agencies because he's not. It was something that someone said to me on Wednesday night. Might have been my friend Doug, I think, maybe, that essentially what he's doing is moving so quickly that because the other side has control of the narrative, and their narratives take time to build up because the narrative is a bunch of bullshit, and you repeat that bunch of bullshit enough times that the population start believing it. And what Trump is doing is that he's moving so quickly that the narrative can't keep up with it. And so the narrative is falling to pieces, which is what you see happening in Europe, because the European leaders, they're always on the back foot. He's always one step ahead of them. And I'm not saying he's some sort of strategic genius or anything like that. All I'm saying is that he's playing a much cleverer game than he did the last time around. And just because he says something that he's going to support someone, like that whole thing with Kellogg, he can send an advisor to wherever and say all sorts of stuff. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what's actually going to happen. He could just be distracting attention because he knows that he's essentially got everyone and his dog trying to derail. You've got the media. If he gives the media half a chance to jump on something and run with it, then they'll start doing the same Russiagate thing to him.
Yeah, they will.
So we'll see. I mean,
we'll see what happens.
I mean, I'm not a massive fan. I'm more, to be honest, I'm more of a fan of JD Vance, Trump.
Yeah.
But Trump gave him the job and found him and decided to hire him and to pick him as his vice president.
I'm liking his style.
And I think that was a genius move. Absolutely. And I mean, getting Robert Kennedy, Tulsi Gabbard, he's surrounding himself with much better people than the last time.
Yes and no, because I think his military advisors aren't as good this time as they had the last time.
I agree with that, unfortunately. but then Tulsi Gabbard is now also.
I'm hoping she'll have his ear. Yeah.
Well, because I remember him saying something during the election that he was actually planning on having everything go through the DNI. And so instead of him talking directly to CIA and NSA and everything else, that it's going to be run through Tulsi.
Yeah.
And she's a very smart lady. And apart from her views on Israel, which is just a general thing in the cabinet, because I'd say the same thing about Robert Kennedy Jr. But at the same time, you can't, to put it really crudely, you cannot get ahead in American politics without sucking a bit of Israeli cock.
It's just wrong, isn't it? It's just wrong.
It is what it is, which is why.
Yeah.
But it's the same. The thing is, it's the same with the Europeans, because if you look at how devious the Europeans have played it, particularly with regard to Ukraine, and what Trump knows the Europeans are capable of, sending Kellogg in to just as a bit of a distraction, and Kellogg was just telling them all what they wanted to hear.
Yeah.
And then actually using that as a cover to be able to make contact with the Russians and say, look, let's sit down and talk. And personally speaking, I would much rather live in a world where the two most powerful nuclear armed superpowers are talking to each other. Yeah. I mean, this period that we've had where the Russians and the Americans weren't talking at all, that's so dangerous.
That has been more, I think there's been more, should I say, there's been less talking between the two superpowers in the last 4 years than there's been in the entire Cold War.
Since the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's
because
crazy.
at no point the reason that the Cuban Missile Crisis was solved was because of the back channel communication between Kennedy and Khrushchev. It's the only reason the world didn't blow its stupid ass up.
Yeah.
And so that whole period with poopy Joe Biden, where he was just refusing to talk to Moscow, and what the Russia, and I mean, even what the Kaka Kallas, the freaking EU wombat, saying, no, I'm not talking to Russia. We don't talk to Russia. It's just like, shut up, you silly bitch. Just get back in your fucking box.
Crazy. Right. Honestly. I think.
Yeah, no, it's 11 o'clock.
We've had enough.
Yeah. Been a good show. I've enjoyed it.
I've enjoyed it as well. And thank you very much, Ed, for keeping me straight. And thank you.
You keep me skeptical. So it works both ways. And thank you to the audience as well, because you guys are great. We love you.
I was about to say that. Thank you to the audience. You are lovely. And as always, it's been great for you.
Welcome to my party. We're just getting started. A life is